Hey there. As you may remember, a few weeks ago I did a video showing the pros and cons of making music on an iPad. And a lot of really friendly companies, mostly Chinese companies that only sell through Amazon, reached out and said, hey, do you want to cover our products like this here iPad stand? Goes up like that, hold your iPad. I'm not sure if it weighs enough to hold your iPad. Actually, maybe it is. There it is. Yep, that's broken all right. Now that is what this video would look like had I never set up a Patreon, but I did set up a Patreon so we get to cover something that my viewers have actually requested, and that is the Modal Cobalt 8 M. I got M. The M means it's the rack mount version. It does come with rack ears, and I got this because I'm a little short on space around here and I don't really have the need for a whole other keyboard. But let's get into it. Actually, let's play the old school jingle. All right, so first let's just get over a little bump here and talk about something. This is a virtual analog synth, meaning that it is a digital synth. And a lot of people hear that and they're just immediately turned off because analog is cool, especially if you spell it with the UE at the end. Abominations like this have kind of branded digital synthesizers with a pretty bad name, and synths like this cannot compare to the quality of analog at all. But in the last 12 or 13 years, a lot of money and research has gone into making extremely small devices extremely powerful. For example, my phone here can use deep learning with the Nest cameras around my house to constantly send me notifications telling me that I am currently home. It's really beneficial. More importantly to the context of this video, now digital synthesizers can be much more powerful, sound much better, and I would hedge my bets that most people can't tell the difference between an analog and a digital oscillator anymore, except that the digital one doesn't need tuning. What more perfect time to segue into the DSI Evolver, the Dave Smith Instruments first release, or Dave Smith's first instrument, has a hybrid of analog and digital oscillators. And when you make patches on it, sometimes it's actually hard to tell the difference between the two. The Evolver is no longer being made. It is a bit of a cult classic, deservingly so, because it is such a unique synthesizer. It has a unique sequencer. It has its own onboard effects. If you want to watch a video on it, I made one a couple of years ago. I'll put a link in the description. I realize that this is all 100% in my head, and these are two different companies, and neither one has anything to do with each other, but the Cobalt seems almost like it is a graduated, more modern version of the Evolver. Like if you were wanting to buy a used Evolver, I'd say maybe check out the Cobalt because it has a lot of unique things. It has a really powerful sequencer, really powerful arpeggiator. More importantly, creating patches on the DSI Evolver requires a pretty steep learning curve. Creating patches on the Cobalt requires a moderate learning curve, or you can use an app that runs on virtually anything you want it to run on, and that makes it quite easy. So yay. All right, let's get down to brass tacks here. We got 8 voices, 2 oscillators per voice. I believe that the Cobalt's strongest argument for why it should be in your studio is that it has 37 different oscillator or algorithm types. It has your normal saw, sine, square, but it gets into some pretty crazy funky things that I've never seen in any other synthesizer, and that is the most unique thing about the Cobalt. There's a mod matrix with 12 routing points that is definitely more obvious when you're looking at the UI from the app. There are 3 envelopes, there are 3 LFOs that are capable of audio rate modulation. It has an onboard sequencer capable of 512 steps. It has a really advanced and fun to play with arpeggiator, and it has MPE support. It has audio in. It has sync in and out for hooking up to your modular. It has MIDI in and out with your standard DIN MIDI ports, and it has USB MIDI. It has endless encoders. As I mentioned, this is the rack mount version. This comes in 2 different flavors. One is a 37 key synthesizer and the other is a 61 key synthesizer. If you don't already know the price of this, and if you have self-control, let's play Price is Right. I'm gonna go through the functionality and give you some sound demos and guess how much the rack unit costs. So stick with me, within a few minutes you'll know how much it costs. First, I want to look at the Modal app. Now, of course, you can program presets and do every single thing from the synthesizer itself without an app, but the app looks really fun too, so let's check that out. This is obviously the Cobalt8M. This down here is Music Pattern Generator, which is an open source Euclidean sequencer that I believe is more designed for rhythm, but we're going to use it here anyway. And this is the Modal app, which controls every single parameter of the Cobalt8 and it runs on your Mac or Windows desktop. It runs on iOS, such as iPhone or iPad. It runs on Android. And most importantly, it runs as a VST3 or AU plugin, so you could just flawlessly control it from inside your DAW, making it easy to add outboard gear into your existing workflow. All right, boys, start your engines. That wasn't very climactic, was it? All right. So, as you may have guessed already, the Cobalt has some pretty unique oscillators. And let's go through some of them here. Ooh, I really like that. It's like a nice membraney sound. And we can mix it with the second oscillator. We have a pretty vast library of effects, so let's put in maybe some delay. So quick word about the reverb. It is not really good reverb. I wouldn't use it to replace whatever reverb you typically use in your sessions or on your pads or things like that. However, I'm not dissing it because it is a very unique reverb, which I value. And if I put a chorus behind it with some decent modulation, I start to hear weird artifacts while working with the synthesizer that it's almost creepy. It's almost ghastly. I dig it a lot. It sounds very ethereal. So let's modulate the mix between these two algorithms. And we can do that by, let's just say, LFO2. Let's make it random. And we could make the depth a little lower, the clock a little slower. And we have a modulation matrix here. And so we could just LFO2 to mix, and then set the depth. Let's talk about poly limits for a second. Obviously, a lot of people see poly limits as a con, but I usually kind of like them because they make the actual music writing process exist in kind of a walled garden. I'm going to play a couple phrases on a MIDI keyboard right now, and due to the way that this patch is set up, listen to how unique it sounds because of the poly limit. I'm just going to go from a C minor to a G minor to an A sharp major to an F major. Let's try that. Something that I really dig about the Cobalt 8 is the sequencing options, because they're pretty unique and they're pretty powerful. And we have a step sequencer, and then we have a real-time sequencer. As a real-time sequencer, we could just set some input quantization, which we will do, and let's set that bar length to 2's fine. And all we do is hit record and play. So let's do it. As easy as that. All right, so let's improvise with this. So the reason I chose this abrasive bass patch, which I am now turning into an early 90s industrial sound, is because I want to show off the step sequencer. And this is the step sequencer. So let's just go easy 1/16, replace, and hit record, and I can now do this. And now we have a little industrial line here. I don't want to go outside because my boots are knee-high and they take 45 minutes to tie. So the sequencer is pretty powerful. However, there is also a powerful arpeggiator. And so we could, for example, click ARP pattern here, and I will just play some notes. And then I'll hit rest a few times. now so if I press this key and this key, check this out. And then add in a G. Maybe add in a low A. We can go to chord set here and just click that, and I'll just play a, I don't know, C minor. All right, now every key we play is that C minor being transposed up or down. Now let's put in another ARP pattern. And now let's go ahead and just hit the C key here. Okay, so I'm going to speed it up a bit faster now, and I'm just going to hit C and A on my keyboard. I'm really liking this RM triangle here. Yeah, that's going to need a sample and hold. It sounds compelling so far. Let's move to another algorithm over here on the B side and see what we come up with. Looks like a nice little fluffy cloud. Let's make another sample and hold. So you know what? I'm going to leave the computer area and I'm going to introduce the Cobalt to a different device. This here is an ATEM Force. I've had the ATEM Force since day one, but the reason it hasn't made an appearance on this channel until now is because it seemingly took them 2 years to update the firmware to deliver on the promises that it has written right on the box on launch day. So as you can tell, this thing is pretty dirty because it's been a doorstop for so long. And while it is really frustrating for a major pro audio company to launch a $1,500, I think it may have even cost me more than that, product the same way that No Man's Sky was launched, it is nice to see them actually trying to redeem themselves on it rather than just moving on with another product. I'm clearly not an optimistic person by nature, but maybe, just maybe, this will be money well spent. Okay, so moving on, one of the problems I've always had with DAW-less DAWs or hardware acting like DAWs is that they lack tweakability. You can't really get in and change parameters all that quickly because, well, you're just sort of limited by the interface. So that's why I think that maybe the Cobalt8M here and the ATEM Force will make the perfect marriage. I had to edit some of the LFOs a little bit in this patch, and it actually wasn't that hard on the interface here. I expected it to be a lot more difficult, and it was actually pretty easy, so that's good to know. Well, let's record. Before and during shooting this video, I promised myself that I would not make a 30 to 45 minute demo of this synth. I would much rather do it interactively in one of my weekly live streams. But how did you like the functionality, and how did you like the sound? It sounds pretty analog to me. And how much do you think it's worth? What did you guess? Well, the answer is $650 US. I think that's actually a great value because I think this synth sounds extraordinary. And I didn't really play that many pads on it because I seem to just play pads on every synth that I demo, and I wanted to kind of go a different route here. But the pads actually sound amazing in this as well, as you may find out soon in my live stream. I feel like a lot of pro audio gear is often heavy on the features that you just hear in a demo or see on the Sweetwater page, and a little light on the features that you would actually use. However, this comes with rack ears, meaning that you could just rack it to your studio desk or wherever, and having that compatibility with the VST plugin is huge. That just means that you could just use this flawlessly inside your DAW session. And I kind of wish that everything did that, because I would be using all of my synths and all of my music all the time, and whew, they'd be wonderful. There's a few things that I'm lukewarm about, one being the 4-pole ladder filter. It is a perfectly fine filter. It does its job the way that you would expect it to, but I think when you have these 37 really crazy algorithms and oscillators, you kind of expect there to be a really crazy filter to accompany them. But like I said, it still works. It does its job. So with all of that being said, I definitely give the Cobalt8 thumbs up. I think that the rack unit especially would be a great synth if you wanted to replace a VSTi like Serum with some actual hardware. So, pal, friend, what do you think? Do you like it? You like the way it sounds? Think it's a good value? Let me know in the comments. If there's anything you want me to cover in the future, let me know in the comments. If you like this video, if you learned anything, subscribe to the channel. Once again, my top patron of the month is Quietly Turning. That's their name. It's not somebody that's quietly turning, but Quietly Turning, thank you so much. And if you want to support this channel and get access to things like samples and reactor patches, or some of the music that you hear in the background, or have access to a kick-ass Discord community of like-minded musicians such as yourself, then my Patreon link is down there below. It's awesome. And with that, I guess, bye.